everybody to the April 9th Board of Education regular workshop meeting. Dustin, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, I will. Jocelyn Appicello. Here. Eric Arnold.
Here.
Jennifer Harrington Wilson. Here. Dan Jasnow.
Here.
Peter Lesser.
Here.
Ken Schott.
Here.
Sarah Tormey.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So we're going to move into executive session. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of discussing matters leading to the appointment or employment of a particular person. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back. We are moving on to accept agenda changes. Be it resolved, Board of Education of the, sorry, I didn't ask. I'm a little off my game here. Does anybody have any recommended changes for this evening's agenda? This is what happens when I don't start the meeting and I go off script. All right. Be it resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? All right. Next, we are moving on to board communications and presentations. We begin this evening with Gup's exterior sign and learning commons mural discussion. So we have the different options up here, and I know there was a committee that met several times. And Jocelyn, you were on this committee, so I was wondering if you would want to share some thoughts and feedback as part of the staff on that committee in regards to this, both the sign and the mural, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
I'll just say quickly about process and then
Yeah.
we'll discuss ideas of what's being presented. It was very well run. It was great to have Dusty and Dr. Stoll and Coulter were kind of feeding us with all the different design elements. We're going to review the sign design tonight. The committee kind of had a clear choice-ish that they had two, but they were fine with a couple. And I'll let you, Greg, explain the sign if you want, and if board members don't feel like they really understand what it's made of and how it would look. And then, of course, there's a mural.
Let's start with, let's do sign and then we'll go to mural. How about
Yeah.
that? 'Cause I think that we want to separate them out. I just want to also be clear, and I apologize for not stating this earlier. The goal for the board tonight is to pick a sign. We have allocated this money, we had the committee, the sign outside needs to be replaced, so our goal is to pick one.
And I think the committee members understood that it was going to be up to the board to make the final decisions, and they were just going to give some ideas.
I mean, I'll just give a quick thank you,
Yeah.
Jocelyn, for that. Quick context, the committee made up of students, lots of students who were really excited about being part of this process. Parents, board members, staff such as myself and Dusty and Coulter. And really, for the sign element, we know that the board and the community didn't want a digital sign, so the committee felt that making sure that it pays homage to the area and the historic nature that we live in, but modernize it in some way. So these signs are made up of they don't look plastic, but it is a material almost like Trex, if you think about it, that we sandblasted to make it look like wood. The signs on the bottom, we want to communicate with the community. The signs on the bottom are being fabricated by this company to be magnetic, so we could put letters on it, and we could bring the panels in and change it, making it easier for us to kind of change it and make it modern, or at least up to date, I should say. And we do know that we have to devise something to keep hands away from lettering and make sure that the lettering stays creating words we want communicating to the public. So the committee just, again, recommendation, thought about the two signs on the bottom to the far right. So, two on the bottom row, 5 and 6 are the ones that the committee thought were the best design, but as we said, the committee is just an advisory committee, and it's up to the board.
With that, does anyone have any questions on the sign?
No, I'd just like to point out that the shape of the signs are different, which I needed for Jocelyn to point out to me. So I couldn't figure out why they were different.
And the top grade shapes are the same as the bottom grade shapes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just the
Noticed that.
coloring on the bottom part, right? I feel like I'm playing one of those puzzle games where we have to figure out what's different about the different things. So does anyone have any thoughts they wish to share or questions on these sign options?
How thick are the signs? I'm just thinking about snow piling up on them.
These are going to withstand quite a bit of weather, and the person that we were working with, there was a couple designs that came in from different, these people came in way under budget, as well as being able to fabricate what we needed. So we're not worried about any elements. We're also, this is ease of cleaning. You just power wash it. So as it gets dirty, as it's out by the road. So, the material is very sturdy, can withstand quite a bit. Joe knows more as an engineer than I do about it, but the material that you're using is quite sturdy, easy to maintain, not like wood that needs to be,
You're not gonna paint it.
not painted. It doesn't need to be restained or anything like that. You're not gonna get, cracking and wood chips and all that.
So, question, do we think that the white informational signs will make it easier to read the letters that are on?
Yeah, while you're driving.
Or are we worried that if it's white, people are just gonna, when they're driving past it, they won't see it at all, since it's a different color than the main sign?
I think the contrast difference that you have between the white and the blue letters is what you're looking for to make it so you can read it while you're actually driving.
I think the letters will pop more.
Yeah.
I think the bottom one in the middle, I think is the strongest of the two.
I defer to Peter.
You have a thought on making sure all the signs match.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought,
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
if we are under budget, I mean, I wonder if they would do the other signs. I think there's 2 others.
There's the one to the upper parking lot, and then there's one down at
field.
the field. We definitely can talk to them about within our budget if we can do. I think we'll probably at minimum get one of the 2 additional signs and make it mirror this.
I think it'd be nice to have it consistent.
If we get one of 2, I'd like the one down by the. Literally the last.
Maybe we can get the 3rd one done in another year
Yeah.
soon, if it's waiting.
All right, so we have a vote right now, 1 in favor of option, I'm gonna call it number 5, the middle on the bottom. 5, or 2 in favor of number 5, it's like an option here, anybody else like that?
Yeah.
4. All right, I was majority for option 5.
Right? Okay.
So, we're still, all right, okay, Lisa?
Good, we'll see how many other signs we can get done on option.
What's the lead time for these signs?
I don't recall off the
I
top.
don't remember, but provided we have the order in place before the end of the year, we're fine.
Yeah.
So we're good.
Yeah.
Right, now we're gonna move on to murals. This one is a little bit more complex as they are a little bit different compared to the 6 signs. Jocelyn, again, if you have anything you want to add on this as to what the committee thought or the discussions or Greg as to ideas on this, or if any board member had questions or strong opinions.
Are we deciding on this one tonight, or this is just discussion?
The goal, if we could decide on it, that would be lovely, because this was from last year's budget. Our hope is to spend money within the actual year we budgeted for.
I have strong opinions.
That's great.
As someone who's interested in design, I did have to be honest, my wife was on the committee too, so I'm getting a little bit from her, but personally, as just from an aesthetic point of view, I actually like the first design, but maybe not for this space. And I think I like the third person's process. I thought she was going to work really well with students, and from what you shared, like I think that would be great. The one question I had though about it was her concept of the 4 seasons. To me, it felt kind of irrelevant to what we're doing. I just wondered if she could perhaps add into her process one stage where she would co-create with the students and maybe whoever we would like to include, really think about what the concept should be. It wouldn't necessarily change her process or even her style, necessarily, but like when I think of environmental education, it's not just about nature. I mean, it's about inquiry, it's about community, it's about innovation, it's about science. There's just a lot of aspects to it. And I just wonder if she would be willing to just revise her process a little bit more to have a stage of co-creation with students on the concept. You know what I mean? Like, what are we really trying to say? Because 4 seasons is like, to me, it's like, why?
It's not so tough.
Yeah, I'd like to stay there.
If I just may add,
It's just
all of these are just to kind of get the sense, the style of art they do. All of them are willing to work with us and kind of redesign. But I think the important thing is to know, like, stylistically, what does it look like? We gave them a task, and they kind of didn't get much feedback from like a process where you could say, like, it's not 4 seasons. We're really thinking it's more of this. All 3 of these folks will work with you. But really what the designs were, their concept forward, their best foot forward without context. But you can kind of see the style that they would kind of produce. And I think that's the important thing with the renderings that they provided. All of them are willing to work to some extent, and some have more experience than others working and co-creating, as you said. I think all of the 3 people that are interested in doing it will kind of revise their concepts based on what we want. But you can kind of see the style that they lean towards. That's the best way.
If I can say something after that, so the design 2 and design 3 up there are actual murals that exist, because those 2 applicants have designed murals even in schools and even with students. Design number 1 is not a mural that actually exists. It was just a way, I think, for this applicant to demonstrate how the students using kind of wood blocks and rubber stamps, where they would actually be in complete control of the design. So I have a feeling design number 1 wouldn't look like that at all, because it's really, really based. As presented, it was the most student-driven concept and design. Plus, it was, in my opinion, it was a really unique medium to use, because besides using the rubber stamps or the wood blocks, the students would then learn the process of silk screening. And so there is a multi-stage process. The other 2 are great too, painting and coloring and cutting. But I don't think design 1 will look like that at all, because it'll be totally led by the students, as far as I understand the proposals.
So you both bring up interesting points, though. I think, is there a possibility that we like design 1? Because I agree with you. I think the use of the blocks and getting students involved in those processes is really interesting. We had talked initially about this space right above our heads, this lovely white space. Are there other spaces, if we stay within the allocated money, that we could say, hey, we like you too. One of you gets a little portion to do a different space, the other one can do this space here.
Yeah, the committee looked at that and talked about that. One of the spaces that still is within the learning commons, but the outdoor learning commons, there's a retaining wall out here in the courtyard that is not been great to look at. That is a great space to create student designed art. And so that space, particularly when the weather gets warmer, working with kids on designing and making that space look a lot better, there's that. And there's this space up here, and what I just want to, for the community, the board knows this, we're not going to paint directly or go something directly on it. We're going to do it by panel, so that if we need to do any repairs or move things, we don't ruin the art. So anything we put up here will be panel based and then be installed after. Just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like with the first applicant, I mean, again, like I said, I think aesthetically, just for my own taste, I really like that person's work. but it felt like they didn't have as much experience working with a very large group of kids, and I wondered if there could be, like, and I think there's kind of a scale to to that person's work, not just what they showed, but some of their other work that they've done in their life as artists, that to me felt more like, almost like an outside, or like, like, which I think could be really cool, and would take advantage of a space like this. Yeah, just because it's more sculptural, it's kind of, I don't know. I really liked it, but I just wondered if for this space, something that, working with someone who was more experienced working with a very large group of might be.
We only had 20,000?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like it might be hard to have both artists with that amount of money, but who knows, I mean, I guess.
Whichever way the board wants to go, there's no harm in asking. Appointing one person to do one thing, if it's within the budget, and a different person, whatever the will of the board is, we can certainly ask and get back to the board. I think the important thing is to know what we're asking and who.
And there were students on this committee, right?
Lots of students on this committee.
Did they have a preference,
They
one
did.
way or the other?
They did.
Which was?
Design 3. Most of the students selected design 3. Just for this space. We didn't really talk at length about asking artists to do something different in a different space, to be fair to them. That's not a discussion we had. It kind of happened more right now, and a discussion of, really liking several of the artists and the work that they do.
And was the preference for design 3 based on process or subject matter or aesthetic or anything?
As I call it, Jocelyn, you can help me. It was more like like the color scheme and the fit and the space.
It would be pictures.
Yeah, and that's all they really had to go on.
Yeah.
But they just thought like the color schemes on number 3 kind of fit a little bit less kind of loud and would fit in the space better. And that was, what the kids were sharing.
Then the top photos, that's peak still, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, some that overpass.
So I'm kind of like with Peter, I like the aesthetic of design 1, and maybe the colors and the fact that the person has more experience, but I always lean towards where the students might learn the most, and it sounded from the proposals that design 1 would have more opportunity for students to learn about the art process, and I wonder if guidance was given with a color palette, if you couldn't get that same color palette that's in design 3 in design 1. But that the idea of using the blocks and the rubber, that to me is like a memorable experience for students that might really help influence what they do in the future, as opposed to something that's kind of predetermined before seasons.
I almost wonder if it could benefit the artist one hasn't done it before. I know working with large groups, maybe it is because there's more room for creativity. Now, this is what we do, this is how we do it. But then again, it's a bunch of elementary school kids, so that could just be kids.
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with kids age 4 to,
But it's small groups.
I'm not them, and I don't know, I've met them, I don't know that, these people, so it's hard for me to say,
I like design 1 as well.
Yeah.
I think officially voted for design 1.
So are we picking one though, or are we thinking about doing multiple?
I think if we go back, if we have that space outside and the board is comfortable with it, we go back to, it sounds like 1 and 3. Right? Anybody jumping in from design 2? And say, okay, we have this thought. Within this amount of money, do you think you could make this happen?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Is any one particular we're asking for one space or the other, or give it to both of them and say, we have these 2 spaces, if you could only do one? I just want to make sure I know what I'm asking, in fairness to the artist.
Well, it seems like the way you were speaking about it, that applicant 1 is a sculpturist, outdoor, kind of more,
Seemed to me, again,
Right.
going from what I.
even though design 3 is clearly outdoors, but.
But I do agree with a lot of logic too, that like 3 has done this before. So for the prime space in here, that is a big visual area, that does.
Yeah, I mean, and the kids gravitated toward it too. Part of me feels like, if you get that group of kids and they're really excited about a particular approach and we say, oh, well, here's this other one. I don't know how excited we'll be, right, to stay involved with the process.
Just to clarify, I don't know that the students on the committee distinguish the approaches to them. It wasn't as much of a discussion because it was in the words of the application as opposed to passing photos.
I mean, I think the process of the first design is really interesting, but I just wonder, I'm not an artist and I don't know these people's process, but like, can you pull that off with such a large and diverse group? 4 or 5 year olds, where are they, where are the 10, 11 year olds, and does that person have a real plan to make that work? I mean, we could go back to them and ask.
Right.
Or we could, okay, here's some feedback, please revise it.
But they knew what they were applying for.
Yeah, but it sounded like it was somewhat open.
Well, they're only applying for this space, because that really was the charge of the board, and that's the charge
Students
of
were gonna be
the,
involved.
and students were gonna be involved, and the first go around, we had to reiterate that you need to include all students, and one of the, Artist One at first wanted to work just with a small group of students in their initial proposal, and we had to go back and say, no, can you do this with all students? Because we're gonna create art made by the kids, it's gotta be all our kids. And they did, and they said they could, so they revised it, and they said they could. So the outdoor space that we're talking about tonight, that is nothing that was really broached with any of the artists. And it was not really a discussion we had with the kids. It was almost like, some thoughts from the adults and now discussion here, like, well, we do like a couple of these, 2 of these, and I think.
I wonder if there's a group of kids, smaller groups, I don't know what, middle school art people, or, who could maybe work with the first design, the first designer because I feel like, I don't know, I just have a sense that is where that person is most comfortable. It's kind of, it's pretty high-end, but it's wonderful art. I mean, I think it's great. It's high-end process, and I just wonder if that's, again, going to work over 200 kids versus 15.
So maybe if we
30.
offer the outside space and go back to the artist's original idea of a smaller group,
That might be more comfortable.
maybe that's. We kind of talked about this a tiny bit. And my son that is the 8th grade president, he's been talking about trying to do something to leave behind for the 8th grade. We talked about that wall a little bit. Maybe there's an idea where we could have artist work with the 8th grade to create something there that's their mark on the school. That could be a smaller group. That could be the way to do it. I don't know, but he hasn't followed through on it, so.
I like that approach because I like that idea because, the thing that speaks to me personally about design 3, especially on the lower right example, is that, if there is participation from a much larger group of kids, right? You have something there where, every single kid is, just for argument's sake, right? Well, let's say something like that is what comes together. Every single kid has their piece that they say, I contributed to this larger whole. And that's what sort of speaks to me about the lower right on design 3, whereas 1, again, I agree with Ken's point. Something like that could work really well with a smaller group of students, but I don't know that a larger group can really point to it and say, here was my contribution to the larger whole in the way that we can do with design number 3. And I also think design 3, it will age well, and I don't know that the style of design will age well. I don't know if in a few years we'll come back and go, but those are just my thoughts in my part.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting idea. I wonder if there's, is there money, or is there, another, is there a way to fundraise, or I don't know, is there a step that they would need to take to give this gift to this? I just want to put that over.
It's a tough cut at this point. see me in eighth grade.
Right.
So
No,
pizza on Thursdays.
they want to do something with it.
Well, for our budget on the sign, you know.
I wasn't intending this to be spent. This was just.
Yeah. Why don't we see if we could, here's what it sounds like we have some consensus to put number 3 up here and number 1 as a wall, either for middle school or 8th grade to leave behind. In terms of budgeting this, let's ask number 3, can they come down a little bit in the price in order to envision that? And number 1, if they were working with a smaller group on a smaller surface, what is their price for that? So let's get some quotes on that and see where those numbers come together, and then we can see how we can fit those pieces together. And if they magically equal 20, which is what we budgeted, that would be ideal. If not, I mean, if this does become an 8th grade art project leave behind idea that we set up, I think that's a really wonderful thing. And then we start budgeting for it, or fundraising for it, because that's what all 8th graders want to hear.
I also wonder if it's something we start doing every year, if it's not first year it hangs in here and then it goes outside. So you can move it kind of, it gets highlighted in the learning comments. I mean, depending on how difficult it is to
I
install.
feel like that's gonna be a bigger thing versus finding like a wall or something that you do a project for every year, maybe make it smaller, depending on the cohort you're working with, it might change too, so.
And I know you said, Greg, that the person was open, but can we just make sure that for design 3, that they are open to having input on the concept
Yeah.
like, from students? But I don't think it should just be kind of like, what do people think, but like an actual process
Yeah.
as part of his or her process. Like stage 1 of the process.
So it doesn't give you a definite answer, but it gives you a path forward
Does.
on murals, but you get the sign
So
answer.
design 1, design 3, see if they can come down in price and if they're open to a little bit more of a process to develop and not a preordained design. And then design 1 to see how much, if they work with a smaller group, whether 8th grade or a couple maybe in middle school, see how much it would cost them to kind of do that work on an exterior wall here. Did I get that correct?
All right.
We'll work on magic.
All right, so now we get to, thank you all for that wonderful discussion. Now we're at item B, the final 2025-2026 budget presentation. And just so everyone knows, this will be a slightly abbreviated version of the full budget presentation. All the previous budget presentations are up on the website, right, Dusty? You can access them, read them, look through them, you can watch our previous meetings, just in case you feel like you're missing any of the excitement on this, but there was some requests not to have it the same night. All right, it's all yours.
Well, not to delay anything, but I did want to update the community. I did send a parent square out today about computer-based testing. I just want to make one statement. I know I didn't have a superintendent's report. I wasn't expecting to speak, but if it's okay with the board, I'd like to just make a statement about computer-based testing. So I just wanted to provide the community with an update regarding the recent challenges we faced with CBT or computer-based testing in administering the grades 3 through 8 ELA. Over the past 2 days, we, along with pretty much every district in the region, experienced significant issues with the Nextera test delivery system, which prevented students from actually logging on and even starting their test here. These technical difficulties have been really frustrating and disruptive and negatively impacted our student instructional time, the valuable time of our outstanding teachers and teaching assistants, administrators, and IT staff. And I just want to publicly thank everybody from our administration to our IT, to our teachers, to our clerical staff. Everybody and our students that were super resilient, and they handled it, and it's one of our VOGs, right, resiliency, and they showed it. And I want to just acknowledge them. But, you know, we did get notice from the New York State Education Department that they acknowledged these problems. They apologized for the disruptions. They said they were in contact with the actual vendor, which is NWEA, demanding answers and solutions to ensure that students will not be impacted further in the 25 testing window. New York State Education Department has assured us that a permanent solution is being put in place to avoid any further slowdowns. And they extended our testing window by 1 week. But to make sure that New York State gets it right and the NWA gets it right, we made the decision to wait till after spring break to start the testing. We're not gonna take their word for it. We'll start again tomorrow and put our staff and our students through this again. So our 3 through 8 testing assessment will begin after break on Tuesday, April 22nd and the 23rd. And we did it because we thought that was in the best interest of the Garrison students and staff. I will be meeting the next 2 days with regional superintendents, and we will be addressing this issue. I think we all are concerned about the validity of the tests right now, and quite frankly, really undermine our trust in the CBT system. So I will share with the board and the community where we go from here, but I thank you for the opportunity just to address that. Now we get to the fun part, right, the budget. We're gonna go really fast because we've provided this many times before, our proposed 25-26 budget, and all of these are available on our website in our budget section under the business office. Again, we're gonna be through under the allowable tax levy. We want to maintain our programs, we want to maintain our levels of staffing so that we can support a vision of a graduate, our initiatives, as well as our strategic goals. We've talked about these already. New in this budget is we really want to provide additional opportunities for subject matter experts in technology, engineering to work directly with students, provide professional learning for teachers. And we want to fund our summer scholars program, which was grant funded previously. We want to spend some money on a design for an immersive outdoor educational classroom in our 182 acre, and also provide additional experiences for our students, for STEAM curriculum and hands-on experiences. We're going to continue with our environmental education, our social emotional learning, our related services, our out of school, our out of classroom extracurricular activities, field trips, SEL, all of those things are going to continue. Also provide high quality professional development and continue with the ability to provide our students with a choice of 3 really high quality high schools. Staffing perspective, I will just say 13 sections this year, 13 sections next year. The one caveat, the headcount is going to be the same. We are asking in this budget to move the 2 band and music teachers from Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES services to actual staff members. Everything else, the headcount is the same. The only addition was those 2 music teachers, and mid-year this year, we took an hourly employee who was an aide and we made them full-time, so that's reflected in this budget. And told you we'd go quick, I'm gonna hand over to Joe.
Okay, I'm going to go through this quickly as well. We don't have any changes. There aren't any changes in any of it. Just go through those. The only update on this is we actually have a firm proposal from the architect now, so that was adjusted to 14.5 to do the concept for the outdoor learning space in the forest. Let's see. Okay. The things we're going to talk about now is the school lunch program, because that is something where we have some updates and some changes since the last time that we talked. The kitchen upgrades, everything, that's still the same estimate. But now we have an estimate for the cost. So we're working with the Hendrick Hudson School District. That's the district that we're working with. Based upon all the work that we've done so far. And we were waiting until Monday, we got an estimate on the meal cost to us. And that meal cost to us is $7. So that's the landed meal cost here for us, based upon everything that they know about what the CPI is for the contract extensions for them, and what they think it's going to be. And they said, if you use that number, you should be good as far as a budgetary number. So that's what's filled in here. So we made an adjustment to the transfer that covers the free and reduced students, or the students that are eligible for a free lunch. We made the adjustment for that. And so if there is a desire, this is where we're probably going to stop and talk about it a bit. if there's a desire to change that price and to lower it from $7, what that would mean is each dollar that you want to reduce it would cost you an additional $18,000 for the year as far as the transfer from the general fund to the school lunch fund to cover that additional cost.
Gonna pause right there and we'll launch into this.
And then just to kind of give you a flavor for it, so partner with Hen Hud, food prepared and supplied by Aramark, who works for Hen Hud. We wouldn't necessarily they do pizza like more often. We wouldn't do pizza at all except for just the fundraiser. And the food would be transported by Garrison staff. And this is just to kind of give you a flavor of what we would get. The goal was to, when designing this, is to make it as likely to succeed as possible as far as from an operational standpoint. And our charge to the people at Hen Hud was essentially what you're making that day, that's what we're going to serve. So this is the April high school lunch menu. It would be items similar to what this is. So with that, now we can talk about any questions or what we want to do.
All right, so can I just frame the conversation we want to have tonight just a little bit, and then we're launching into questions. The goal tonight is to figure out whether we currently have this in as a pilot, using money from fund balance to cover both the renovation, the staffing for the first year, and the cost of free and reduced students. What we don't have in the budget is any subsidizing the actual food for students who are buying lunch that day. So that's what we talk about when we're talking about dropping or increasing the cost. Like food dropped down to $6, we would be picking up the tab for that. So the goal of the conversation then is to figure out, do we want the money in the budget to pilot this for both staffing, renovations, which is the equipment list we saw last time, and at what price point are we comfortable with? So now I'm going to open it up for questions for Joe and us to have our discussion and share our thoughts. So Kent, you had a question?
No, I just wanted to confirm that it was $7 that's baked in with the cost for us to transport it, and that's all in, that's a
So $7 is the food. So that takes into account the district subsidizing the staffing, so that the 2 positions, and the cost of the one-time cost of the equipment. So it's a discussion for the board whether we feel that the staffing costs should be passed on. Now, I've read a bunch, and Joe, you can jump in here too, like, you can sit down too, this might be a bit, but a bunch of, the only place I can find this information, I don't know if anyone else has looked, is by going through different districts' audit reports, and it looks to me like in the school lunch is separately audited, so it looks like the staffing cost sometimes is combined, but sometimes isn't. Can you speak to that, Joe?
It's typically that the staffing cost is part of the school lunch budget. The only thing that sometimes is mixed is some of the Social Security, some of the benefit stuff is mixed together. Sometimes you're even supposed to put that in the school lunch fund. You really should have everything there. The ability to be in the black, the biggest parts to that is to whether or not all of your people are part-time. So that is kind of the biggest component. So schools that usually are and how needy your school is in terms of how many kids are eligible and for free and reduced. Because the more kids that are eligible, the higher your reimbursement rate is, the more likely you're going to be able to cover their costs. This is not being set up as a reimbursement model because of the complexity at starting a food program and getting it approved by SED and all the things that's required to do that is a big lift, and that makes it significantly more complicated for the other school to want to work with us, because there's a lot more rules that have to be followed if it's following the exact school lunch program for federal and state reimbursement. But as far as the in the black versus not in the black, and whether or not you have some expenses in the general fund or a transfer from the general fund over. It's mostly in, are you able to make everybody pull part-time and not have benefits? That's the main thing that really is the determinant on whether or not we.
But so a lot of these programs are still running where they're subsidized, this district itself is subsidizing the cost to a degree
Yes.
for the lunch program, whether it's the staffing portion or in some cases, the food, not all cases. The food.
So we know what all in the price of the meal would be if we didn't subsidize, if we didn't subsidize the cost of staffing.
Or would be, what, the $5.80 on top of the $7.
And do you remember, or does anyone know the, where the public landed on, from the survey about the price?
After $6, it started to drop off. But people were pretty comfortable with $6. Some were comfortable up to 7, and after you got to 7, it was.
I feel like seven was breaking, like seven breaking.
And the one menu that we saw, because the PTA had been working on this, it was a minimum of $7 for lunch.
A private
A
vendor.
private vendor, and it was cold.
This does give us hot lunch.
We have the flexibility, so let's say we try this in September and nobody buys lunch for 2 days a week. Is Hen Hud willing to work with us? Like, are we all in for 4 days a week for the whole year, or are we able to be flexible?
Like, do we have to give them a check every month or whatever?
We haven't gotten to that level of conversations with them. You know, it was literally until Monday, we got a number. They've been here to see kind of our layout, and they've reviewed our equipment list and things about getting it in place. The board at Hen Hud knows about it and is willing to work with us. But the rest of the details still need to be worked out.
I would say years past, this is the first district that has been willing to entertain the idea. We've approached numerous districts
Yes.
over many years about this. So I really greatly appreciate Hen Hud for even entertaining the idea. Though I did enjoy calling them the district who shall not be named in our previous meetings.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure, I'd love to hear what other people think. I wonder if there's a way to start at a lower price point to then get people kind of experiencing for this year or whatever, what the food's like, and, you know, if we subsidize it $1 or $2, you know, like, it's not a ton of money, right? And so, but then in the second year, people are like, okay, food's good, and how does it still work with us? Maybe we up it by $1 and start to chip away, or maybe, you know, the staffing costs would then still have to be absorbed.
Yeah, so
Because we're not gonna get $12 from parents.
I mean, I feel like
So,
it's a good middle ground for us to be subsidizing the overhead costs, the staffing, the software costs, the setup of the kitchen in the first year, and then not be subsidizing the price of lunch. I mean, I think, you know, $7 to me is a reasonable amount. I think there's a lot of interest in the community for this, and a lot of parents are going to be very excited to be able to pay for their kids' hot lunch and not make a lunch every day. I think there's going to be a chunk of the community that's going to be willing to pay $7 for that on a possibly even a daily basis. But I think we see what that's like, right? I mean, everybody might hate the food, and then it's going to dry up, but that's why we're doing it as a pilot program. We're taking it out of fund balance, so you know, I think we have to assume we're sort of bought in for this year, but if it craters, then we can yank it for next year or something like that. But you know, in terms of what we subsidize, I feel like it's you know, I don't think $7 is that unreasonable, right? It's right on the line in terms of what the survey said. I think it's not a completely unreasonable price. And, you know, to have the community see if they're gonna pay for that is something we can test out while subsidizing, you know, the general overhead, which I think is a pretty reasonable thing to ask the district to subsidize.
We have to also cover all if we reduce lunch.
Yeah, that's all they did.
That's in the open.
we have a budget line already for that though, so that is, this is an increase to that line, but we have been. I just want to be clear, because that was something on the survey, some people responded to offering to cover, and your tax dollars already cover it.
The other thing is, I mean, you know, just with inflation, the costs are gonna go up anyway for the cost per meal, right? So I don't know that we really wanna start off with a lower price point and then end up having to subsidize more and more. I think it's better to sort of rip the Band-Aid off and have people see what the actual price per meal would be and see if we get buy-in at that rate.
Do we need to do 4 days, because the survey results suggest that only a third of the respondents would be interested in 4 days even at all? Is Henry willing to have a fix, it's only Monday, Wednesday, or something like that, and just start with small?
We didn't talk to them.
I think if we're gonna do it, we should try it for 4 days. I think you're gonna get people picking different days for their 2 days because of what the menu offerings are. And be mindful of that. And I wanna make it attractive enough that we keep our partner, if they're willing to partner with us, and our staff, because getting somebody to come in once a week is even harder, I think, than giving them a 4-day, 5-day-a-week job.
I think Peter has an interesting point about, students might not try it because it's $7 and the parents are like, well, we have no idea if you'll like it. And I wonder if rather than planning on subsidizing $1 for every meal for the year, we don't put aside a couple $1,000s to have like a couple days that are special, where today it's only $5. Like, once a month there's a special like this Monday, maybe
Maybe we just give it away for the first week versus that.
or give it away for,
I mean, I don't know how much that costs, but that's like,
right,
rather than saying it's a special, it's like if you want people to try it, maybe
but
that's.
maybe the third week, let them get it down to
Make sure that we well, yeah, I think that's an interesting idea. Like, try the,
Yeah.
try it.
trial day for everybody.
Do we think, I mean,
100
just
kids.
speaking as the parent of a young child who we make lunch for, like, I think they're gonna be excited. I think the parents and the kids are gonna be excited to try this out. Like, do we need to pay?
I don't think we do, but
Yeah.
I would rather do that than do.
You what?
I'd rather, if we're gonna like do a sample, you could just give a free day or something.
I think you
But
let
do
your
we need to
kids.
give a free,
No.
I mean, like, I feel like people have been, I feel like this is the thing people ask for more than anything, right? Like, anytime I hear from parents, they're like, where's their hot lunch? Why don't we have hot lunch?
I think I'm fine just doing it with, like, just without any sort of gimmicks or tricks, but like, the big question though is if it does crater mid-year, like how much does HUD expect us?
I think we should
Like, what
wait and see the
we need to
contract
work
we get.
through
I wanna be mindful too, that like when we put out for these jobs, that it's not like, oh, you might only be employed for a month. Like our plan right now is to employ the people serving for the full year. So I think that's important as well. But yeah, we should look at the contract and see what the board, that'll be if the board is comfortable with the contract once we see it.
If it's monthly with them or something, or it's gonna be trickled off, or it's gonna do this many meals, this, and they're okay with that, then it's fine, they can adjust. I don't know what they need.
We can certainly speak with them about like if
What kind of
we're,
guarantee?
yeah, like a lot of food services do that, right? They look at their average daily, sort of sales and then they can adjust accordingly. We'll look at the contract and share it with the board and go from there. I think, it's just whether or not in this budget, remember, this is using fund balance, it's a pilot program, so it doesn't get off the ground, which we've gotten farther than we ever have. It's not like we're taxing the levy there.
Silly question is, do we know what the out-of-pocket cost for, I mean, granted, I know it's apples and oranges, it's a large district, but what's the out-of-pocket cost for parents in Kent? Are they paying something?
No.
They pay $350.
$350.
Staff paid for.
But you have to think about it, there's a scale there too.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
of course, but, and then do we know what the cost is in helping the meal?
Putnam Valley is fully free school lunch and breakfast. I don't know, do you know Haldane?
She doesn't need it.
I'm gonna guess it's probably, they're on the state program for Haldane, because they get the reimbursement, so I'm gonna guess they're probably around the $350 mark as well. I don't know meals. We can look it up, you can go to their website and read their menu, any one of these to see. I will note, and this is not noted on this menu, their food, according to the menus they post online, are free of high fructose corn syrup. I know that was a concern on the survey. It does come with milk, either chocolate or regular, with your meal. It is not made by local farmers. Leave that. I'm just trying to think of all the comments I saw on the survey too. I don't think this is gonna meet everyone's needs. I can tell you that.
Not necessarily organic.
It is not organic.
Yeah, I
I
guess
have a kid
my,
eating school lunch, it's not working.
yeah, I guess where my head's at is, while I would love to subsidize, dip our toe in the water and see if people like it. I mean, $7, if you have 2 kids, and they want to eat every day, that adds up fast. And so, yeah, I just don't know that, I agree with Dan that, this is something people have been asking for, but I don't know that they've been asking for, asking for it at this price. So, and to Pete's point, like, yeah, I mean, what if they all don't like the food as well? So part of me feels like there is something to be said for just ripping the Band-Aid off and saying, look, you wanted it, this is what it's gonna cost. Part of me also feels like there's something to be said for dipping our toe in the waters and letting the community know, hey, we're subsidizing this now so you can understand what the quality is later, but the price is gonna go up no matter what. So if you really like it, know that in the future, it's gonna cost. So, I don't know, I see both sides of it, I really.
If we brought it to 5, for example, then it would add 36,000.
Right, and just to kind of put it in the right framework too. So if you're looking at year 2, so year 2, obviously, you're not gonna do kitchen renovations, that stuff should be basically be done. But if you don't, this is before we're talking about any kind of subsidy or anything on top of subsidizing the labor and the operation. So just that for next year would be 76,000. If you want to have a $6 meal price, the transfer to food service would be 94,000. If you want to have a $5 meal price next year, the transfer would be 112,000. So the transfer never goes away. Okay, so you're always going to have that cost of the staffing and the operation that it's going to be there. So that's always going to be there. If you put more money on top of it, then it's just more money you have to keep putting on top of it.
I'm comfortable, just personally with subsidizing the staffing costs, but not the food for this community. I think, and I want to see if we're going to do a pilot program, I want to see if people want it at the higher price point. Because I don't think it's worth, waiting to see if they like the food. It's going to be very subjective.
It's gonna trickle off no matter what.
Yeah.
Because they'll get sick of it. It's due, they're not gonna like it after a while. I don't wanna subsidize it any more than the $5.80 for the staffing. I feel like that's a mistake, especially in this community. We shouldn't be spending money on that.
Yeah, I have a question. When we made the estimate of 18,000, was that for how many meals? Like, we were anticipating how many meals a day?
100.
100 a day for 40.
Well, my informal poll of a friend in the Panhandle district, it was 2 kids there. One loves the food, the other one doesn't, but eats it. So I think we can.
The high school food program is different from the middle school and elementary
This is
program.
elementary.
So the elementary and middle school program at Hen Hub does meet the state standards, so they are subsidized, so they have to follow a very different protocol. The reason they separate their high school out is to change the quality of the food. So it allows us to easily partner with them, and also your food is
So
different.
this is coming from the high school.
This is the high school program.
Yeah, the lower grades are gonna have, in that case, is gonna have to have the whole grain pasta and stuff like that. And if you have whole grain pasta and you don't like it, that's the thing. And the pizza crust, that's another example of stuff that pizza crust that meets the standards and cheese that meets the standards is different than cheese that doesn't.
Not sure.
They get nacho big, it's just the government cheese. So I think from what I'm hearing, do I have any other,
I say subsidized to 5.
do I have any
We
other?
have the money to come. For a pilot program.
I don't want subsidy.
I would like a subsidy if we can do it for people to try it, if we're very clear that this is the pilot and the cost is going to go up. So I would be okay with the subsidy in that, if we are very clear in our communications with the community that, we're taking a hit on this because you've asked for it. And if nobody likes it, well, then, you gotta be prepared to pay more next year. But if we don't do the subsidy, I'm okay with it too. Sorry to be so wishy-washy, but I see both sides of it, so.
I'm fine with subsidy outside of staff.
Yeah, I'd rather put the money toward something else that's more sort of core educational mission if we're gonna do it. I think it's a good balance, as I said, to subsidize the staffing and the overhead and not subsidize the food. And we can always revisit that next year if there's a lot of interest, but we're hearing that people are being left out. We can, revisit that in the future.
If the food is fabulous and all 200 and some odd students buy it every day, does that bring the cost down for us at all?
It potentially could, if we're able to buy the meal for us.
But then obviously we would pass that along to the parents.
Yeah, I mean, the $7 is an estimate based upon what we know now. It might come in lower. I can't guarantee that, but it's possible it could.
Right.
We got to do the math based upon what we think would be served, because we can't run it in a deficit. So everything in here is conservative, and it's should cover the cost of what we think it's going to be.
So what I'm hearing is right now, we would look to definitely subsidize the staffing and the one-time equipment purchase out of fund balance. And then the cost of the meal, which we're putting a limit at 7, is our conservative estimate right now, would be passed on to the parents, and we have built in enough to cover it for our free and reduced population. Do we have overage for the free and reduced if the population grows?
Yes, we have a little bit over, yes.
Okay. We're comfortable with that, and maybe we get the cost down once we see it. Is there a way to share this menu, either through a weekly update to get parents seeing it? Because I know I like to think that everybody's tuning in and watching our meetings, but I don't think that's true.
If we adopt our budget, I can share it as a communication out to the community. And if this is in it, we can say, this is the partner, this is a big approximation of meal costs, and this is a sample menu from the entry customers.
And then just one practical question on the menu. When we say we're taking one thing, all the menus generally state, bow tie pasta with sausage and cream sauce, Caesar salad, Italian bread, or we're taking the first part, right?
Well, I would say it depends on what is manageable. So if we're able to do an or the or isn't pizza and it's not going to cannibalize the 8th grade fundraiser, we could potentially do it.
Yeah, we can get into more specifics. For instance, they do sandwiches usually daily there with boar's head meats. Like, we could talk to them about that being an or maybe that being one day. Like, we have some flexibility. We just can't deviate from what they're producing.
Okay.
Right? But we can talk to them a little bit. But on the day that they produce popcorn chicken and mashed potatoes, that'll be our hot meal. Okay. That'll be the hot meal. And I do want to say that they are able to, and we made sure, because I know a lot of community members said, for kids with food allergies and things like that, they will be able to accommodate, we will be able to let them know of options for those kids too.
Yeah, I think if we put this out to the public, I think the framing of it and all those caveats, like this isn't exact, it might not have an option for every day, some days we want to say that.
Yeah.
So people get the one,
So they understand what they're
Yeah.
sort of
and the allergy.
looking at.
all that.
Yep.
And that Friday pizza is still going to be fun.
So gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Friday pizza with apples.
We're not doing foie gras on Friday or Wagyu Wednesday. Couldn't come up with any more.
That's on Tuesday.
Not for $7. All right,
Okay,
so we're gonna move on. We have it, we sound like we have consensus. I think we're ready, and now we can continue with the budget presentation.
Yes.
Wait, can I just ask, because I know you're going on to revenue and not expenses, but with the other pilot program,
Mhm.
did we build in money for a well-done evaluation of that program?
So you're going back, I just want to be clear on the question you're asking for the SPO.
Yeah.
Can you go back on pilot program slide, please?
It's not there because I know that's the cost of the
Yes.
staffing, but last board meeting, we had a discussion about how it would be really vital to do a well-done evaluation. That includes pre and post information, probably by a third party, not like through a survey on Google Docs. So that is budget.
It's currently not in the budget.
is there a discussion that maybe we could get that through BOCES?
And not for free, probably.
That would pay for those and stuff, so that would go to a BOCES line.
It wouldn't be a lot, but it'd be,
Yeah, I felt that there was a pretty good consensus on that. We need program like evaluation, I don't know what the term is. And I think the community is for that too. There are definitely some people who spoke out one day about strongly in favor.
It's not generally a big number. If we add that, how much am I gonna mess up the math you have for tonight?
I'm not worried about what that might cost.
Okay, thank you.
I think we can figure it out.
Okay,
thank you.
We have contingencies in other lines to do
That's great.
professional development and other sorts of things. So if it's the will of the board to get a third party to do program analysis, we believe we can cover it in the budget.
Any other questions on pilots before I let Joe move on? All right, Joe, floor is yours.
Okay. All right. So let's see here. All these are the same. That's the same. All right, this is still the same. All right, this is the first thing that changed. So I had a bet that this is where you would go. So there's actually three things in your content. One is the school lunch program with no subsidy, which is option A. And then we had option B and C to lower it to $6 or $5. So what's in this PowerPoint here is the option A, which is subsidizing the staffing and the free and reduced to match the $7 budget. And that's what this does. And really, so that just changed the revenue from undesignated fund balance to $1,445,000, and the budget changes to overall $14,683,99. And that's the same use of the debt service reserve. And the proposed budget, there you see it's $14,683,99, and then the interfund transfer amount includes the new amount for the food service program. All right, we are doing the same proposals that we had before for the roof. We're looking at doing. We're going to do the roof on the main office and the front steps and the sidewalk, curbing, the stairs in the back, and some retaining walls. We're pretty good on the last bullet there. Private schools, everybody had to have their information in by April 1, so we don't see any big changes there. We're looking to collaborate with Haldane on a couple of runs if we can do it. All right, let's see here. So the new amount is the $14,683,99, which is just basically adjusting the amount for the new value for the food service program.
Will you say that number again, please?
$14,680,399.
So that is the right.
That's the right one. And in your board information, there's an A, B, and C for both the property tax report card and the budget, but obviously we'll be using A for the whole. Okay, so the important dates to remember: April 21st, the board member candidate positions are due, and we have continuous voter registration if you're not registered all the way up through May 15th. So if people are not registered, they can make an appointment during regular business hours to meet with Dusty and get registered if they're not already registered. And we have, May 7th is our public hearing where we're going to present the budget in full detail. And then that'll be our last presentation on this budget.
Do you have any further questions?
Can I make one comment before we end? I just want to let the board know and the community know that what we plan to do, starting in July, Joe and I will work on long-range fiscal planning. We want to make sure we're in a good place. We have a healthy reserve. We're working on capital projects that are overdue, and we have more to go. We are improving programs and at the same time protecting those programs which really work well. So we will be presenting to the board a process where we'll do long-range fiscal planning so that we keep those healthy reserves, continue to expand our educational opportunities and extracurricular activities for our students, as well as ensure that we are maintaining a good process to take care of our physical plan. So I just want to let the board know. I know that was a charge of the board previously and years prior, and that's something that Joe and I will be doing starting this summer, working with the board and the finance committee.
I'll just add on to that, we, Dan and I spoke with Frank and Joe about also in June, we'll look at where we are with all of our different projects, COVID-related projects. People may have realized once they get approved by the community, it then takes a long time for the project to come to fruition, why we start lining them up, so. Take another look at that. Do you have any other questions or comments, thoughts on the budget?
Can I just ask about the long-term planning, just really quick? I think I shared something that I got from that webinar.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if that's going to be part of the output of that work, is to have a document, like a working document.
Correct. Yeah, that information was generated using a software package called Forecast 5. That is a package that we subscribe to through BOCES. So it would be possible to get a similar look of charts and stuff that comes out of it.
I know it's a lot of work.
Yes.
But it's good work, and we want to make sure we have options like we do right now. That, that's important for a district to be in good financial stead so that you can do things for kids and provide opportunities for community members and, take care of leaky roofs and broken retaining walls.
Awesome. Great. Any other questions? I'm going to go ahead and move on to C, which is the adoption of the proposed 2025-2026 school budget and approval of the property tax report card. Dropping that number in, right? That blank space, okay? All right. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby adopts a budget of $14,680,399 for school district purposes for the school year commencing July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, and approves a proposition for the school budget to be presented for voter consideration at the annual meeting of the district on May 20th, 2025. And be it further resolved that the board hereby approves the 2025-2026 property tax report card as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. Do I have any other comments before we move to vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Okay. Thank you very much. Next, we have the approval of proposition to appear on the ballot for the annual meeting of May 20th, 2025. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby authorizes the following proposition to be placed on the ballot for voter consideration at the annual meeting of the district on May 20th, 2025. Do I need to read the whole thing?
If you want to, you don't have to.
It's listed on your agenda and available online. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstention. All right, that brings us to the first review and discussion of the 2025-2026 draft board meeting schedule. Anyone have any thoughts or comments on the schedule as presented so far? Keeping in mind that we have to have the first meeting within the 2 weeks in order to have our reorg.
Looked good to me.
All right, we're keeping meeting time to 7 PM on Wednesday. All right. If we're good, we can, then if you have any thoughts that come up later, like you realize that, you know, it's your significant other's birthday or something on one of those days and you want us to move it, reach out before we adopt it. Okay. All right. That was an easy conversation. That brings me to public comment. Public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns. In accordance with policy 1510 of the Garrison Union Free School District, any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channels. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign-in sheet. Commenters will be invited to the podium to address the board. I don't have anyone signed up, but if anyone wants to speak, I've got the podium open. I'm going to go ahead then and close public comment. We will have another public comment opportunity later in the meeting. All right, moving on to the minutes. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the minutes of the regular workshop meeting of March 19, 2025 as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. Do I have any questions or comments on the minutes as presented? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions. Moving on to CSE CPSE recommendations. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District approve the Committee on Special Education, CSE, and Committee on Preschool Special Education, CPSE recommendations and student placements.
I don't think we had any on this.
Oh, am I
Sarah.
jumping? I'm off the wrong one. I'm so sorry. That's why that's blank. I'm looking for numbers. My apologies. Please strike that. I work on 2 different agendas. I do this. I have my notes on one, and I don't always bother to transfer them. So my apologies. I'm going to move on to committee report. You can just jump in and stop me, Dusty, next time, unless you really want me to keep talking. All right, Finance Committee, Ken.
The Finance Committee met on March 18th and discussed all these things that we just approved.
Great. DEI Committee report, Jocelyn. Unless anyone had questions for Ken. All right, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Jocelyn.
All right. Last week on April 1st, we had our last DEI committee meeting of the year. We talked about 4 things. We revisited the DEI committee charge and kind of looked at the work plan that we originally adopted 3 or 4 years ago to see how progress we've made in the district. Pretty much done with everything on the work plan. It was originally as intended, and DEI-based work is kind of baked into how a lot of how the district works and operates. So we're just plugging along as usual, and really aligning with New York State, the culture responsive framework, which we're still kind of working closely with. We discussed the community book read, which I think has been well received and is ending this week, I think, right before spring break. I think one of the most interesting things that I liked was that, you know, it's hard to get the middle school students engaged with a community-wide book read. But one way that they did it this year, which was really fun, was, you know, the mystery readers. So they, you know, they kind of all get together and, you know, do a podcast type of thing, and there's production and bloopers, and so I appreciate including them in that kind of aspect of it. There was a Phillipstown-wide DEI committee meeting on March 26th. Garrison, along with Haldane, Manitou, Desmond Fish, Butterfield, Boscobel, the Depot Theater, lots of institutions in Phillipstown meet regularly. It was a good meeting. But it's good that I'm glad that we are still maintaining kind of community-based outreach related to DEI initiatives. And that's pretty much it. Did I miss anything?
You got it all.
Do you have any questions for Jocelyn on the committee report?
Was there any discussion about the title of your committee?
There's been no directive officially
Right.
about changing, and so we are just staying course.
Well, thank you. I was gonna say the community read, I think, has been really well done this year. That's a fun one. I agree about the middle school too. All right, moving on then to planning committee. Jocelyn?
Yeah, so we just met right before this meeting. We discussed, next generation curriculum and teaching styles and classroom stuff, ongoing. We're excited that we'll have a new member of the admin team to really work on this, starting over the summer, but then really full force in the fall. I think we're not necessarily gonna have a content-based priority for next year, because it's gonna be much more about the teaching style and project-based learning and moving into more interesting models, different ways of teaching. Although we did flag that maybe we've gone to dive deeper into social studies as a way to maybe, but it's not official, but it's just like that, we did math, we did the science division this year, what's next? So that was floated out there, nothing set in stone. We talked about how we're going to commence our environmental education 5-year plan planning in the fall as well. We'll have a committee made up of students, teachers, community members, admin, to work throughout the year to really try to develop a comprehensive environmental education plan. And at the same time, we're going to be working towards our STEAM curriculum. There's a lot of new ways to think about STEAM. There's e-STEAM. There's next wave STEAM. There's and then there's STEAM, which we branded already, the TM, but the 3 E stand for engineering, which is new, environmental, and then empathy, because those are kind of 3 words floating around. So Jen, thank you very much for offering up those. But this will be another great thing that we hope the new administrative role will kind of try to tackle in the coming year. And yeah, and then we talked about the long-range planning, but you already brought that up regarding financing. Did I miss anything?
Do you have any questions for the planning committee? Thank you very much. All right, sticking to the correct one now. So moving on to personnel items and consent agenda. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the items on the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Yes, can I?
Yes, I'm going to invite Greg to jump in here, specifically as it relates to item B, which we're very excited about.
Thank you, Sarah, and Board of Education and the community. I want to share with everyone, after an extensive search process, I'm excited to recommend Mr. Michael McDonald as our next Director of Innovation and Learning starting July 1st. Michael brings a wealth of knowledge to the Garrison schools, having served as an Executive Director of Mathematics for Yonkers School District, one of New York's largest school districts, a little bit larger than us, maybe just a little more. With over 12 years of experience in education, including 4 years as a central office administrator, Michael has demonstrated exceptional leadership and commitment to educational excellence. Throughout his career, Michael has taught both middle and high school students, held various leadership roles, including teacher leader, coach, mentor, department facilitator, grade team leader, coordinator of student activities, and math directors. Mike's educational philosophy throughout the process closely aligned with our vision of a graduate. He emphasized the importance of fostering strong relationships with students, setting high expectations, and encouraging students to explore their interests, develop empathy, there's that B again, communicating effectively and thinking critically. His current focus is on enhancing instructional practices through professional development tailored to adult learning principles. He will be invaluable to our district. So I'm really excited to welcome Mike McDonald to the Garrison Union Free School District. We look forward to the positive impact he will have on our students, teachers, and community. And if you want, after his appointment or before, I'll ask him to come to the podium and say a few words.
Why don't we do a vote and get it official, and then we'll invite him up. How's that sound?
Sounds like a plan.
Do you have any questions from the board before I move to a vote? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstention. All right, congratulations.
Good evening, everybody. Very excited to join the team. I've heard nothing but fantastic things about the Garrison Union Free School District, so I'm very excited to join the team starting in July and promote all the fantastic work that is already happening here and whatever I can do to enhance and move the team forward. So thank you so much for having me.
Great job. We want to picture.
Peter, just scoot on.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thanks for coming tonight. Thank you for sticking through it. You had a great night too. Budget nights are the best. I do, yeah. I found people get great when I tell them this one thing we do. Okay, moving on. Back to new business. Be it resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the student. That was part of A, so you do it all as one. Be resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the new business items as presented. You want to speak to?
Yes, a couple, B I'll speak to, but before the,
So, sorry, did you want to go motion?
Oh, shoot, I'm sorry. Good, thank you. Good, there we go.
oh,
I need more stuff. Okay, go on.
sorry. Tonight is an approval of our sports mergers. We typically merge with Haldane. The one thing we did a little bit differently, and I want to thank Carl Albano, interim superintendent of Haldane, and Tom Cunningham, their athletic director, and Patrick, our athletic director. We met this year. We wanted to make sure what happened in the spring of this year, where our soccer students didn't have a place to play because their Haldane had enough to field their own team. We sat down and we said, we're going to make sure every kid, whether they're a Haldane student or a Garrison student, has a place to play. So we went through making sure that we merged where we needed to merge. We held our own teams for basketball, girls and boys, but at any point, if a host team has more students than as residents of their district, and we're sending over some students or vice versa, and the teams become too large, we will do what we did in girls basketball this year, is the guest team will send over an assistant coach and we'll make sure that every kid has an opportunity to play. So what happened in soccer this year for our students is not going to happen again. And what we did for the girls of Haldane girls basketball, making sure that we got an assistant coach and made a little bit larger team, worked out really well. So we're going to use that model to ensure that our modified sports program is strong and that we're not going to cancel it. And so I want to thank Carl for his leadership, Tom and Patrick for their leadership too, making this possible.
So Garrison's gonna host modified girls, soccer, basketball, and softball. And then Haldane hosts the rest.
Haldane hosts the rest, and we are hosting our own boys basketball. We believe we both have enough to run our own program.
Do you have any other questions specifically on the sports one before we move on?
So is this a yearly thing you're gonna have to sit down and do, or is it just permanent?
No, this is a yearly thing we have to do. We did talk about a different type of arrangement through a contract. We're not there yet, but what we did do is internally make sure that we changed the kind of past practices, and we're gonna sit down every year and make sure that both kids, Haldane students and Garrison students, always have a place to play.
That's a great change. Thank you for initiating that and making sure that happens. So. All right. And then I want to draw our attention to item D.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I want to thank, this is a $250 donation by Mr. George Whipple. to enhance Mrs. Shulman's classroom library. We really want to thank Mr. Whipple for that donation. Really rounded out Mrs. Shulman's library, and she was able to purchase those books, so we want to thank him for that.
All right, do you have any other further questions or thoughts on new business before we move to a vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Yeah. Okay. That brings me to our second public comment section of the evening. If anyone wishes to speak, not going to read my paragraph. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Move on to board member comment and other discussions. Jocelyn?
No comment.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, first off, just congrats to Michael McDonald. We're excited to have you here. And great job, Greg, on the modified sports issue. That was certainly concerning my house. We are a soccer house, so that was a big one. So thank you for that. It was a very welcome surprise. And I also just want to thank everybody who contributed to the budget, especially Joe, Finance Committee. I know that wasn't easy. I still have strong concerns about an SPO. You know, and I even got phone calls about it today, knowing that our budget vote was tonight. You know, and one of those concerns just being that we're calling this a trial and paying for it out of fund balance. You know, the teachers asked for it, many parents asked for it. So my feeling is there should be an up or down vote on it with, you know, clear transparency in terms of what this will do to the budget over the long term. You know, as one parent stated here in public comment a few weeks ago, I'm paraphrasing, you know, school lunch as a trial period is one thing. Kids don't like the food, it's too expensive, we go back to brown bagging it. But how do you put the toothpaste back in the tube on armed security? And I don't know. Now, despite my belief that the cost of an SPO should have been included in a levy, again, it's a great budget. Joe, Greg, Finance Committee, you all did amazing work. You know, but also no one showed up with budget for it, which tells me that the issue of an SPO is either less divisive than I or we thought, or people just accepted, you know, the outcome. But I have spoken with a couple of parents of kids who are most at risk with the presence of an armed SPO, and they are still genuinely really concerned. One of them even used the word frightened. So I want to be clear that those parents, I hope, are really involved in the process of crafting the MOU. You know, not us saying that we're going to take all their concerns into consideration and accounted for, but really showing it by having their active involvement. So, you know, now that we're moving forward, my feeling is I really want to make sure that we are not minimizing those parents' concerns or putting their kids at risk. I know we say we won't do that, but I really want to emphasize the importance of having those families involved. And, you know, I do want to see that third-party analysis that the community's asked for, that Jocelyn raised earlier. And to reiterate again what I've said in previous meetings, I really do want to make sure we have a really robust MOU that doesn't have armed personnel in educational spaces unless responding to an emergency. You know, outside in the morning and pick up fine. Outside at recess, fine. Patrolling the hallways, classrooms, cafeteria during lunch, or the learning commons, to me, not fine. And especially if the parents or kids of color or neurodivergent kids or both are clear that this will cause stress or lasting harm, we really need to be listening. So again, great budget, well done. You have my support. You know, even if I don't like the accounting approach we took on this one particular issue. So, you know, I draw the line at an MOU that does not involve the parents of at-risk kids or puts a person with a firearm where neither should be. And I really do want to see that third-party analysis. You know, we closely assess almost everything we do here. So we should be assessing this too. So again, great job on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaking of assessments, if on April 22nd, computer-based testing fails again, I personally would feel that it would be appropriate for us as a board to say, we're not putting our kids through this rigor today. And I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, but it's just something I know you're going to be working with the superintendents. If they don't have it working properly by that after the April break, I don't know that we give them a fourth try. That's all.
Is there action, I think that is a really interesting point. I'm also just running the meeting schedule in my head, and our next meeting is that Tuesday night as well. Would you need any action from us prior to that in order to not run it? Is that an option with the state? That's probably an unholy question.
That is an unanswered question.
Yeah.
It's unprecedented that, a whole district, because of an administration error, has opted out. But we can look into it. If you want me to look into it from a legal standpoint, I can look into it and get back to the board by Friday in an update and to say what are our legal options. Can a district make a decision? Can a board make a decision? Remember, there's also the math test too, in that testing window too. So we're talking about multiple tests. But I can get the board a legal answer that Friday.
Could you also ask what for, can they switch to paper-based at this point, or is that no longer?
I don't know that we'd be able to get the paper-based in time securely. I don't think that's possible. We've already gotten a paper-based for those kids with accommodations that require paper-based. I am 99.99% sure you cannot get paper-based tests this time.
Just wanted to clarify that and see if that, maybe it's worth asking if that's an option for the map, because that's a few weeks out, and then that's
Usually you have to order those well ahead of time, and they're specific, you have specific counts based upon it, and they're very secure tests, so it's very unlikely. Again, we're in an unprecedented territories where a whole state has gone down with their assessment system. My hope is we are gonna see, I don't need to belabor this point, but there are some districts that have opted to continue with the rest of this week. Not every district has decided to wait till after spring break. We've made that, and so we can also take a look at how districts fare in the next couple of days and get back to the board. And I will update the board my Friday update on the legal standpoint, and if districts have found success in the next couple of days with CBT.
If anyone has any questions that come to you after this too on that, please.
And then just a welcome to Michael, and also, I'm just pleased to see the extension of Greg's contract.
Thank you. Dan?
Also, just want to say welcome and congratulations to Michael as our next Director of Innovation and Learning. I'm very excited to have you on board, and I think that it's such an important position for our district and reflects a lot of what I think we as a board are really excited about and striving toward, and excited to see you get into the role and have some of your expertise and experiences and be able to help us drive forward some of these priorities that the board has set about innovation and technology and continuing our environmental program. So, we talk as a board about a lot of things that are less fun or less educationally driven, and I think this position in particular is something that is very much at the heart of what we do as a board and part of what reflects the board's priorities over the past year. And I think also the budget that we have this year really sets us up extremely well to move forward a lot of these issues between Great Reserve, investments we're making in educational programming, and preserving the educational programs that we've invested in over the past couple of years. So welcome, really excited to be working with you and with the rest of the team.
Thank you. Peter? Ken?
I just want to thank Joe and Greg and the Finance Committee specifically for helping get the budget together. Like, we don't always get everything we want in these budgets, and we don't always agree as we hammer them together, but do appreciate the unanimity and to support the budget after a thorough discussion. And I do think after doing this for a few different years, this was one of the best processes we've had, and this is one of the better budgets we've had.
Thank you. All right, I would also want to welcome Michael, and I want to thank you guys for this wonderful budget season. I think we have really interesting, constructive conversations. I think it's wonderful when we don't agree all on the topic and we're able to come and show different sides, because our community doesn't all agree on everything. So I think those conversations were really important. And will continue because the budget now, of course, goes to vote, but on May 20th, I don't think we made that date enough. But I think we have a lot of conversations that are ongoing as well. This is just our approval of the budget, and then goes to the public. And then beyond that, while this is a blueprint for spending, there's still a lot of pieces. And I think on both our pilots especially, we need to be really, keep that in mind, that we have both the MOU, as you mentioned, Eric, that we really need to dig into. We're not there yet. And we need to look at the contract with Henry Hudson, understand what this means. And I just want to congratulate you both on putting school lunch in a budget. This is something I've heard talked about for years, and to get it this far, thank you Budget Advisory, for all the parents, and Jen for running a committee that successfully brought this forward. It's just amazing. So I think we do need to take a moment to really celebrate that, because I think there's a lot of work that goes into that. And I do hope it comes to fruition, so thank you. Yeah, we're excited to extend the contract. I'm sorry to pause for that one. I think that is a
Better than the alternative.
this budget season shows why. It's been a really good one. I also want to say I went to the musical last week on Thursday and Friday. Jocelyn's daughter was amazing as the lead. And the new sound system that we approved really made that show in a lot of ways. It allowed for a lot of creativity, the kids to really move around the stage. So it was a wonderful, it wasn't perfect on either night, but it was a great, really, they did Singing in the Rain. It was a great show. And it was really nice to see sort of how something that starts in a finance committee, moves its way through the budget process, comes together through Greg and Joe really pushing to make sure that the sound system got funded, or not only got funded, but got put in place and installed, and we had a provider. There was a lot of work that went into that. And then it really made a difference for students and the families. So we don't get to see a lot of things that like we do come to fruition and like have an impact, so that was really exciting. And I look forward to more musicals in the future. That's all I've got. I'm going to go ahead and move to adjourning the meeting. We don't have any more executive sessions tonight. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby adjourns the regular meeting of April 9th, 2025. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Abstentions. All right.